Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where today we have some very serious, important, and complex matters to discuss. Boy, are they complex! Please bear with me. And I want to start with MoviePass, which made some very big headlines on Tuesday when they had to announce two things. The first was that they had been acquired. They had to divulge this. They've been acquired by a data mining company, but they didn't have to say for how much. Then they said, oh, you should be so happy about this, though, because this acquisition is allowing us to drop our price point yet again to just $9.95 a month. Oh boy, we're not only going to save our own company, because when you have to keep dropping your price point, it means nobody's purchasing your product at the previous price, but we're not only going to save our own company, but we're going to save the movie business, because nobody wants to pay to go to the movies anymore at the theater. And we know this to be true because all the big chains had to release their quarterly earnings reports, which were not good. The summer did not go well, as we've discussed, and all their stock went down. So MoviePass says you should all love us, from the consumer to the distributor to the studios. Right now, MoviePass is operating at a loss. They fully admit it, but they feel that if they can show that they can bring enough people into the theater, they can get a slice of the pie eventually and be cut in on the movie ticket prices. And they're saying, don't worry, we're happy to operate at a loss right now. And, you know, the theater shouldn't be upset and the studio shouldn't be upset, because we're gonna still make sure that you get what you're supposed to for each movie ticket. They want to basically be a big bulk business. They said, we're going to be the Netflix of going to the movies at the theater, right? And they like that comparison, not only because everybody loves Netflix right now, Netflix is making a lot of waves themselves, but because they have a former executive from Netflix heading up their 9-person company. But oh, they're going to expand because this is going to be big. This is an offer that is too good to pass up. But AMC Theaters, and a number of you are wondering if this is an offer that's too good to be true. And AMC, in fact, has instructed their legal team to see if they can break their deal with MoviePass because they're not happy with this new situation. That might be hard to do. I wonder if they were smart enough to insist on a bottom point, a floor for what MoviePass could charge, right? They probably didn't, and you know, this is one of those situations where greed might have gotten the best of AMC. But let's break this situation down. I think this is very bad for the movie industry. You know, just if you're wondering how I feel about it, I'm going to tell you right out front. You know, MoviePass feels that it's going to save the movie industry. I feel that it's going to cause people probably to flee even faster. And you know, a number of you are like, you know, who cares about, you know, it's a very common thing for people, a very common refrain for consumers to say, who cares about big business, right? Big business certainly doesn't care about me. They charge me way too much. And perhaps the prices could come down a little bit. And also, maybe it's not a great business plan, because when less people are going, to ask the people who are still going to pay more. Although I feel that AMC, for instance, has an excellent loyalty program with AMC Stubs. But anyway, I feel that this is going to cause the money to circle the drain even faster. I think it's going to go down even faster. And, you know, I think that MoviePass is really hurting the industry. And I think MoviePass is only really out for itself. I think they're a very shady company from what I can see. So anyway, again, they want the Netflix business model. Netflix can offer you even less than $10 a month subscription cost, with tons of content and very high quality content, some of it. But the thing is Netflix has so many subscribers, they just make so much money. Far more people subscribe to Netflix than go and see a movie every month. So that's why Netflix has so much money. So MoviePass is trying to turn going into the movies into the same bulk business. But you know, they have to understand there's no operating cost for Netflix. They just digitally stream it to whatever device you want to watch it on. They don't have really any employees at the theater. They don't have to maintain. You know, it's the same reason that so many sales are going digital, and you know, stores are going away, because it's a lot of money to maintain salespeople, a storefront, stock that store. It's much easier to have a warehouse somewhere and just like a handful of people who just stick it in boxes and ship it to you. So, but you know, that's the situation you're dealing with. It's not this. Basically, it's apples and oranges, whereas MoviePass is trying to say it's oranges and oranges. All right. So anyway, the thing is also, as far as operating at a loss goes, they were just acquired by a data mining company. That company's going to want something for their money. So they're probably going to want, you know, you have to put an app on your phone to use MoviePass. So I wouldn't be surprised. And also, it's a charge card that you get. So I'm sure they want to data mine what you do on your phone and also what you pay for with your card, your credit card, because that's what happens. You know, you charge your movie ticket through your credit card, your MoviePass credit card, and then they can credit you back as that's how the deal works. You're actually making a purchase. They're just refunding you the money because you're a MoviePass subscriber. So that's a lot of information for that data mining company, which they can sell off for quite a bit of money. And that's how a number of companies make money. That's why, and it's an issue as to whether or not they should be more upfront about asking whether or not you want to opt out of that. So if you're always wondering, how did someone get my address? How did this other company get my address when I never asked for for an email from them or a catalog? And it's because data mining. So that's one thing, all right? Then I also wouldn't be surprised if they're going to make their money by eventually, maybe in the next year or so, going back up in the price point. They're going to probably do a really quick announcement, not just make enough of an announcement so that they're legally covered, and hope that enough of you who do subscribe won't unsubscribe in time not to get hit with the charge. It's like, when they give you a free trial and they're like, it's free, but you have to give us our credit card because as soon as the month is up, we're charging you. Same thing. And it's the same business practice. So if you are signing up for MoviePass, you better watch that price like a hawk and see what the cancellation policy is, because they can make a lot of money in just a single month when they raise the price and they catch all those people. It's enough people won't unsubscribe to probably make it worth their while. Now, as for AMC and why they're threatening legal action, well, first of all, they got into this situation out of greed, right? So how did AMC even get into the MoviePass business in the first place, right? Well, MoviePass has some strings attached. What happens is that, sure, you can see a movie a day, but you can only purchase it the day of. Basically at the last minute, too, because you can only make the purchase when you're physically near the theater. They say it so that you can't have a friend use it, right? But I think the real issue is that basically what you are is you're a seat filler. It's at the last minute, they're like, oh, we didn't sell these seats for the movie. Let's, why not give them to MoviePass people? And they were okay with it because it started out at a $50 price point when they first signed all these deals. So they felt there would be a limited number of people who would do it, right? Now there are going to be so many people, they crash the site. I think AMC is concerned that instead of these people being seat fillers, they're going to come in, go near the theater so they can unlock the app, make a purchase. You can't do IMAX or 3D, but still, and take up all their 2D seats from customers. Now you might be like, well, who cares? MoviePass said that you're still going to get what you're owed, AMC, and the studio's still going to get what they're owed. If MoviePass wants to operate at a loss, first of all, ask yourself, MoviePass isn't a charity. Why does MoviePass want to, operate at a loss so that you can see movies for cheap? It makes absolutely no sense. Another shoe is going to drop, right? Or maybe it's already dropped and you just don't know where it fell. It makes zero sense, okay? MoviePass is not a charitable, again, organization. So anyway, the problem is that I think first of all, it devalues the product, right? I told you this is complex. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So what happens is that this, first of all, it devalues the product, right? I mean, even though, again, the studio and the theater are still getting the same amount of money, it devalues it in the eyes of the consumer. I think that so far you can still tell a difference between a theatrical release and something that's for streaming. And so you should have to pay for that, right? And can that difference be maintained if you're not? So it devalues the product. Also, MoviePass claims that people buy more concessions when they have MoviePass, but at the $10 price point, if $10 is what finally motivated you to get a MoviePass, I think honestly you're probably not going to go and then pay much more than that, double that than for your food, right? I mean, they're going to have to probably just be really vigilant about checking bags to make sure nobody sneaks food in, basically, because I think that it's just a different customer because a different price point appeals to different customers, and I don't think that the $10 price point sales are going to buy a lot of concessions. So you're taking up more seats, and they're not going to be selling concessions. Then also, it's only $10. The experience means less to you. I know that some of you say, well, that's not true. I'm a cinephile. I love going to the movies. It matters to me, and this is going to allow me to do what I love. That's fabulous. But you need to think of the bulk of the group, right? I mean, there's always going to be, the exemplary people in the group. But, for the most part, I mean, we know what human behavior is, right? I mean, you're on the planet Earth. right? Just like you know that MoviePass isn't doing this out of the goodness of your heart. You know that a lot of people, there's a big enough problem with talking and being on the phone now, or maybe people just start getting up and leaving because they're like, it didn't cost me anything to go to the movie. I just went, I tried it, I didn't like it, I decided to look on my phone, I decided to talk to someone, I decided to go. Going to the movies for me becomes a way to pass time. And if with Netflix doesn't care. Netflix doesn't care if you only watch the first 5 minutes. They don't care if you pause it for an hour and then eventually come back to it. They don't care if you talk all the way through it, because you're doing it in the privacy of your home. They couldn't care less how you consume the product. But since movie theaters have you watch it as a group with other consumers, some of them paying much more than you did, it's a huge problem. So this is why MoviePass is a very bad idea. And it's not, I don't think it's altruistic at all. And I think that it's going to drive people out of the theater even faster to digital services. So maybe they're the Netflix of movies and that they're going to drive everyone to Netflix, but that's what I think the situation is. So I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts about it. And for those of you who did purchase it, maybe on Tuesday you were like $10 and it was too good an offer for you to resist. How do you feel about it now? All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now the next two stories of the day, I want to focus on the situation with stunt work in Hollywood, which is not good. Now I think it's interesting because, and I think this has a lot to do with it, and that it's a shrinking. Well, I wrote in my notes it's a dying profession, and now it literally is, as 2 stunt people have died in just a month. It's very tragic. But I think what's happening is that you're in this weird flux period where you have digital stunt people, but you're taking away a lot of the stunt jobs, so it's not quite as enticing a career as it once was because there's less opportunity, but they still need human stunt people for some stunts, or maybe some productions don't want to pay for digital stunt people, and it's causing a problem. So of course we have the Walking Dead tragedy where a stunt person died there doing a jump. They did not land on the mat as they had anticipated, and they were killed. And then this week on the set of Deadpool 2, a female motorcycle racer who was doing her first stunt gig, subbing in for Zazie Beetz, aka Domino, was able to do some a complicated motorcycle sequence just fine in rehearsal, but something went wrong when they were filming and she tragically was killed. All right, so let's talk about it. In both cases, I think particularly the Deadpool 2 situation, they were inexperienced in stunts, or they didn't have enough experience. And that's I think is like really the heart of the matter. So with this woman being hired, a lot of people are talking about the fact that she was hired for her skin color, that the production wanted an African-American stunt person, even though the only one available to them was, while she was a very good motorcycle racer, she had absolutely no stunt experience. And a number of stunt people have pointed out that racers are supposed to avoid crashing, whereas stunt people, that's their whole job. They know how to brace for impact, they know how to fall, and they know how to pull the plug on a stunt when they can just tell it's going wrong. And also they know that if the production tells you they haven't had time to make a helmet for you, that you shouldn't do it. And unfortunately, this woman agreed to do the stunt without a helmet, even though the previous, there was another stunt person also subbing for Zazie Beetz apparently, and that person had a helmet with an afro put on top of the helmet to hide it, but apparently it couldn't be used by this other person, by this woman who was killed. And it's very sad, and she should not have been willing to do it. And I've seen enough, and so we'll talk about that in just a second, but a number of people have also pointed out that head replacement is very easy these days. We've been able to spot it in the Wonder Woman early trailers. They put Gal Gadot's head on a stunt woman's body. So they're like, you could put any helmet you want on this motorcycle rider and have her do the stunt, because you could just easily replace the head. But again, it's cost cutting. So you have a situation where there's less people to choose for less jobs, and then as talent diversifies on camera, you don't have as diverse a pool reflected in the stunt community, right? There was a white motorcycle stunt woman who was very experienced. She, for instance, did Margot Robbie's motorcycle stunts in Suicide Squad. Didn't make the final cut, but she was riding a motorcycle in some of those cut scenes, and she was available, but they couldn't use her, obviously. Not only because she was a white woman, but I'm sure they feared what would happen if people found out, and they said that's you can't do blackface, and even in stunt work, it's not appropriate. Now, some people also said in response to what happened to this poor woman that she knew the risks. She signed on to it, she agreed, and that's just the tragedy of stunt work. Well, here's the thing. She didn't understand the risks. She didn't have any experience. She didn't know what she was getting into. And she also had the brass ring in front of her of getting to work in the movie business. This was someone who was working. It was important to her to show that people of color could be in the racing world, particularly in motorcycles, where they're not very well represented. Actually, they're not particularly well represented in racing either. That's something that NASCAR has been working on, as we've discussed. So there was a lot of temptation there, and she just wasn't educated, and she didn't understand that she wasn't qualified, right? She felt, I can ride. And, it's really the stunt coordinator and the production's responsibility to say, no, you know what? I appreciate your enthusiasm, but you don't know what you're doing. I'm sorry, okay? Now, I'm sure the stunt coordinators will say, and who knows if this is true or not, that the studios pressured them re costs and timing. Maybe the stunt coordinators, in an effort to make sure they got the gig and to keep a good reputation with the studio, said they could deliver when they couldn't. But anyway, it's all going to fall back on the studio because they have the deeper pockets anyway. Now, Sarah Jones was the last person to be killed on a set, and that was years ago, about 2 years ago, before this happened with these two people with stunts. But she worked on a very small indie film with no distributor. And so that's why that was an ongoing case. No one could make it go away. So they, of course, had a criminal, case, and a number of people involved with that actually went to jail. And they just recently had a civil case, which they won, and they went after the railroad company because you go after the deepest pockets you can in these situations, and they got quite millions of dollars from the railroad company. Now, anyway, Deadpool 2, Ryan Reynolds sent out a very, I think, appropriate tweet about the situation. And I think that you will probably never hear about this again after the end of this month. I mean, it'll come up occasionally, but for the most part, it'll just fade into the distance. Just like with Disney in that, tragic situation where a little boy was killed at the Grand Floridian when he was attacked by an alligator. But I think what happens in this case is that the studios write a check. They write a really big check for millions of dollars just to make the situation go away. And I just think that's what's going to happen here. Now, I think that what really needs to happen going forward is that if studios do need actual stunt people, just like they need diverse filmmakers, they should start a training program. And so I think it falls on them. And they might go, well, why is it my responsibility? It's like, well, no one's picking this job. You're the one who needs it. You're the one who ultimately benefits from it for your production. So if you need stunt people for blockbusters, you're going to have to start training them. And so I think at the end of the day, not only is it the right thing to do morally, but even from a financial standpoint, it's the right thing to do. To train stunt people, try and attract all different types of people so they can be able to sub for all different types of people you're casting in your movies, and make sure that they know what they're doing. And also, you got to really be careful, and you can't cut corners. It's just tragic. Nobody should die making a movie. It's not worth it. It's very sad and tragic. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, there was another stunt headline made this week with Tom Cruise, who's famous for doing his own stunts, and he, his luck finally ran out, and he broke his ankle on the set of Mission Impossible 6, and they've had to go on break, and so they're going to wait for him to his ankle to heal, or at least I guess get to a point where he can film with it, and then go back to resume their filming. And they feel they can still make their release date. They said, don't worry about it. And Christopher McQuarrie, who's the writer-director, he also did Rogue Nation, very, very talented individual, got his start writing The Usual Suspects, great guy. He said, don't worry, this actually is fantastic because now I can go to the editing room, assemble what I do have, see how it's coming together. This is actually a wonderful opportunity for me. I'm so excited, and the movie's going to be better for it. But here's the thing. That might be great creatively, but from a financial standpoint, it is a lot of money to stop production and then have to start it back up again. That's why they shoot a movie in a closed amount of time, about 3 months, quickly in a row. I mean, you have to put all this talent on hold. They can't go and take other jobs, right? I mean, I don't know how long of a break he needs, but this talent has to be on hold. Then usually you can get a deal if it's on location for hotel rooms. Now I need to get a whole new set of deals. It's very, very expensive, especially for a globe-trotting film like this. Now, of course, Mission Impossible 6 is insured, so they're going to have to cover all of that. But I think that insurance rates for Tom Cruise now will likely skyrocket if he insists on doing his own stunts. Either they'll have to pay a huge amount of insurance going forward for Tom Cruise movies, or he'll be contractually obligated not to do stunts. So I think that's probably the end of that, unless he wants to cover the expenses himself because he feels it's so important to his identity as Tom Cruise that he does his own stunts. I don't think it is. I mean, look how The Mummy turned out. I mean, I think he should be more concerned about quality at this point over, gimmicks, right? I mean, he had that good time. I mean, when people think about Tom Cruise, I mean, it's a fun trivia fact that he does his own stunts, but I don't think that's why anybody enjoys his movies. So, and also we just discussed that head replacement is super easy, so I don't think there's any reason to do it. Maybe Tom Cruise feels that's cheating, but his movies just got a heck of a lot more expensive to make. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you think Tom Cruise would lose something about being Tom Cruise if he didn't do his own stunts anymore? I mean, does it matter to you? I mean, I don't know. I mean, as a studio head, I'd be like, if it's that important, I guess I'll go get another actor, but I'm just not paying that much for your insurance rates. And, actors have to be insured. And, that's why it's hard sometimes for older actors to work because, the insurance company is afraid that you won't make it to the end of production. It's they have insurance for a reason. All right. So anyway, that's the third story of the day. And I just think it's interesting. I think it also highlights how dangerous stunt work is. All right. I think that there's kind of an image about it being like, oh, you landed on a giant inflatable balloon. Oh, isn't this fun? Stunt work is just a charming part of the industry. It's incredibly dangerous. And, people are professionals for a reason. It's not just something that anyone can do. Although, to be fair, I'm sure Tom Cruise has had a lot of stunt training. All right, so anyway, those are the three stories of the day. Now, instead of the viewer question, I also want to take a moment to talk about the Great Movie Ride. I was out of the office Monday through Wednesday because I went down to Orlando for a couple of days so that I could ride the Great Movie Ride on Sunday, its last day in operation. Fabulous ride. I got to ride it 4 times. I had such a good time, and I was on one of the last rides ever. At night, right before I got on the line just as the park was closing at 9:30, end of summer hours, and everyone was cheering and going crazy. The people working on the ride, because it's an interactive ride, it requires some acting. They're giving it their all. It was just really a tremendous experience. And they had recently redone it with Robert Osborne, former host of Turner Classic Movies, and it was bittersweet to see him there as well because he recently passed away. So I felt very bad that the ride was going away, and that's one of the reasons I want to mention it. I think even Turner Classic Movies has suffered from the loss of Robert Osborne. I just don't think they do quite as good a job highlighting films and why you should be watching them. I don't watch Turner Classic Movies as much as I did when Robert Osborne was still hosting. Now, some of you, when I tweeted that I was down for the Great Movie Ride, riding it for the last time, some of you said, oh, I was on there recently, but, it was showing its age. Well, I think that they could have I would have been nice for them to pay to update the ride. The ride was open for a very long time, decades, and I think that it would have been nice for them to occasionally been like, oh, let's swap out a movie for another one, just to refresh it, right? To just keep people's interest in it peaked. And also, I'm a big fan of supply and demand. I like business, and I think it's unfortunate that Disney's Hollywood Studios as a theme park has struggled. It's the least visited of all 4 theme parks, and I can understand that the Disney company needs to do something to fix that. And they are. They're adding a Pixar land, a Toy Story land, and they're adding Star Wars land. So I don't see why the Great Movie Ride couldn't have stuck around and continued to, I think in some cases you do a community service and a service for the industry. And, you just find a way to get people interested in the Great Movie Ride, beyond, as I said, refreshing it. You don't have to knock it down. And what really made me sad about the ride going away is that I think there are less and less places that are celebrating movie history, and more people who don't appreciate or even know about the history of film. And I just, decades of spectacular films that just aren't watched. It's like when people say, oh, I don't like movies with subtitles, or I don't like black and white movies. It's like you're missing some amazing stuff. And I think it's really important to understand the legacy of the business. We talk about creative versus business all the time, but I think both parties there agree, both business and creative, that the history of Hollywood and its legacy is crucial. It's really, really important. And to build on that foundation, for instance, 2 films this year, Wonder Woman and War for the Planet of the Apes, I feel both filmmakers, Patty Jenkins and Matt Reeves, really knew their stuff. They're clearly students of film. And they really borrowed heavily, but I think in a way that was not copying, but they learned, why keep relearning the same things? Go back there, learn what other filmmakers have learned and build on their shoulders. And I feel that's what both Wonder Woman and War for the Planet of the Apes did. I don't think War for the Planet of the Apes turned out as well as Wonder Woman, but I respect the hell out of the first hour of that movie. And I think that if we pay less and less attention to movie history, you're going to get more and more soulless movies. Nobody likes a cash cow film. Everybody can spot it coming a mile away, and can see how people responded to Wonder Woman. And I think even someone like James Gunn and his Guardians of the Galaxy, he's also clearly someone who really loves film. He really pays attention to a different era, right? I mean, they're all looking at different eras of filmmaking, and I think that I just think it would be really tragic, and I'd hate to think of what kind of movies would be produced if people, didn't appreciate movie history. I mean, it's never been a big selling point. I mean, we've discussed this before. Movies about Hollywood actually don't do very well at the box office because they only appeal to a very specific group. But that's the group that goes on to make movies, right? And I think that it would really, I think that there would be. I think it's not in the best interest of the creative or the corporate culture in Hollywood to get rid of shining a spotlight on that legacy. So I was very sad to see The Great Movie Ride go. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that as well down below. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. It's good to be back, and you can check out some more videos right now.